Good day and welcome to today's Conversation podcast. Today, I'm privileged to host one of the great personalities of our country in the legal fraternity. He holds a Master of Laws degree in International Commercial Law from the Ivy League's Cornell University School of Law in New York. He holds a Bachelor's of Law degree from the University of Zambia. He's an advocate of the High Court, advocate of the Supreme Court, the Constitutional Court. He's a commissioner of votes. He's been practicing law for more than 10 years, but he's well renowned for his recent position in the last 4 years as Law Association of Zambia President. Mr. Lungisani Zulu, welcome to today's Conversation podcast.
Thank you so much, Ambassador Mwamba, and excited to be here. May I begin by commending you. This is an important platform because the issues you raise here have contributed to changing the narrative about what matters for this country. So you provide an important platform for us as a country to speak to each other.
Yeah.
So I'm excited to be here.
Thank you very much. We sought your voice here because I think the country is in some form of paralysis, but we'll come to that. Your institution plays a key role in protecting governance of our country, issues of the Constitution, and just the direction that our country takes. We'll be discussing Zambia at 60. As you are aware, we are celebrating Zambia's Diamond Jubilee. But before we get to that, people need to know, who is Lungisani Zulu? How did he become Law Association of Zambia President? Let's start with that. Who are you?
Thank you. Again, very interesting question. One of Zambia's sons, Galamkani, who died not so long ago, had a book written, We Don't Just Become, which is quite a very interesting topic about who we are and where we have been. So it's a very good question. Who is Lungisani Zulu? Lungisani Zulu is a father of 4 boys. I am a proud father to 4 sons that, I live for, and married to a beautiful woman. Francisca is my wife. Where am I coming from?
Yes,
because who I am also has
like
to do
Galamkani, who you have quoted, stated, we just don't become.
Yes,
because
yes.
People see the end product. Yes. Let's start with your early life.
Yes. So who is Lungisani Zulu historically? I am a son born out of Eastern Province. My early life is from grade 1 to about grade 7, 8, was in the Eastern Province, Chadiza district in particular. This is where I was born and started my school. Then I transitioned to come to Lusaka, and that is where I did my grade 9 all the way to secondary school. And ever since, I have been a Lusaka person. So I'm a hybrid of a rural Zambia and modern Zambia. So I'm a bridge of these two. From secondary school, as you introduced in your introduction, I went to University of Zambia.
Why law?
Very good conversation and a very good question. I'll tell you that initially, when my uncle and I were discussing what I wanted to do, guess what I told him? I told him I wanted to be a movie director.
Wow.
So in my mind, I set out to be a movie director. I had
What was your interest in movies, and why would you want to direct movies? Are you a storyteller? Do you read a lot of books? Do you watch a lot of movies?
I have a passion for translating ideas into practice. And I think a movie director, to my mind, appealed to be that role. That to translate what is an idea in the mind of the director into a reality, into a beautiful piece. So I set out to do movie directing.
Okay.
And went into the School of Mass Communication at the University of Zambia.
Wow.
Then in my first year, I maybe got impatient. I wanted from day one to begin movie directing. But because the movie directing didn't happen immediately, I got interested into law.
Yeah.
Because law is a very important instrument for justice. So to my young mind, it appeared to be a good instrument to, yet again, translate solutions to clients, to the members of the public. Incidentally, my name means fix it.
Yes,
so
Lungisani.
Lungisani is an opportunity for me to fix things.
Yeah.
And law gave me a platform, at least as a student. I believe that I'll be able to leave my name because I'll be fixing legal problems of my clients. I will be fixing legal challenges of different corporate clients, and ultimately will be helping the country. So I chose law because I wanted to contribute in fixing and providing solutions to members of the public. That is how I transitioned to law. After I did my law, I then went to Ziale. After Ziale, I went to the University of Zambia to be a staff development fellow.
Okay.
And I also was trained at the University of Cornell University in New York, and came back to teach law. So I was teaching at the University of Zambia for 5 years as a lecturer, and also transitioning into private practice.
Okay.
After that, I decided that I'd contributed my fair share in the academic space and private sector. I decided to go in-house. That is how I went to the central bank. I worked at the Bank of Zambia for 6 years.
Okay.
And retired.
A young man retiring. Yeah. Well, very interesting career. You start out, I think, as a professional. You transition to be an academic. And then again, you have a taste of professional life at the central bank, I think, where you learn a lot of banking and financial experience. Your role at LAZ is an advocacy role. Why did you begin to affiliate yourself with LAZ? Of course, you are obliged to be a member as a lawyer, but the advocacy role of the Law Association of Zambia.
Yes. So I eventually, as I said, retired from the central bank, went into the commercial space.
Okay.
Set up a commercial law firm called Equitas Legal Practitioners with my partners, and that is where I have been. But the question you ask, advocacy, why getting interested?
Yeah.
I was privileged at a very early stage to appreciate that offering yourself to members of your fellow profession is one way in which you can contribute to helping and uplifting the collective welfare of everyone. So as early as even in my university life, I was active in a student association. I actually did vie for the presidents of Unzalo. Because I'm not a politician, I couldn't go for Unzasu.
But at least for your department.
But for my department, I went for Unzalo. So I did attempt to be president of Unzalo. Unfortunately, lost. But I never lost the passion. So when I became a lawyer, immediately I was 5 years thereabout at the bar. I joined to be a council member of the association. And that.
So you've been in the leadership of LAZ for some time?
I've been in the leadership of LAZ for the last 6 years.
Okay.
Yes, so I think it was about 7 years or thereabout when I joined as a council member. That gave me a platform to appreciate how critical LAZ is, not only to its members, but to citizens of this country. So being in the council of the Law Association of Zambia awakened in me the desire to contribute, to advocacy, to see how we can improve as a body of lawyers in advancing the growth of society. Incidentally, we were created 50 years ago as a legal profession. And in our founding statute, we are mandated as a body of lawyers to use the instrument of the law to further the growth of society. So being at the center, at the leadership level, awakened the realization that lawyers practice not for themselves.
Yeah.
They practice to further and assist society.
Mm.
That is why I took an interest, and that interest has been growing until I was elected president 2 years ago, and re-elected president of the Law Association of Zambia 2 weeks ago.
Congratulations, and the country, I think, congratulates you for this re-election. And it was a competitive process. It wasn't just handed over to you. And I think your record as last president the last 2 years then helped with the re-election.
Thank you so much. And indeed, it was campaigning, and it was ultimately the result was a huge responsibility placed on me, but humbling, because it's for the first time that we have seen a 2-year mandate president being re-elected. So I feel very honored by the membership. The huge trust reposed in me is very humbling. I'm grateful to the membership for this huge trust. But it also translates to more work, because once given a mandate, we have a responsibility to do our very best to further the membership, as well as to use the platform of LAZ for what it is intended to do, which is to advance society.
Correct. I guess when you walk into LAZ Secretariat and you look at the walls of those luminaries that have held your position, you know, what comes to mind is just the weight of LAZ's voice. You've had, I think, a vice president, I think in George Kunda, who was last president. You've had people now that are judges, some constitutional court judges, who were last presidents. There's such a long history, like you said. You yourselves are celebrating a Jubilee anniversary because you are 50 years old. Of course, all the country is celebrating a Diamond Jubilee, which is, yours is golden. The country is celebrating a Diamond Jubilee, which is 60 years. This makes me transition to the politics, because that's where your space is as people are concerned. When you are quiet, Zambians worry. When you speak, other people will urge you, are you politician? Join the politics. So whichever role you play, Zambians demand your presence. Who are your inspirations in the last 50 years, if you look back at the president, and some, as you take up this role, who are your inspiration among, it could be among the current lawyers, past lawyers, or I don't know who inspires you?
Very, very good question indeed. When I look at the men and women who have...
Only one woman?
Yes, Linda Kasonde.
Linda Kasonde,
yes,
wow.
Who have occupied this position. I'm reminded of the biblical story by John the Baptist, that I'm not worthy to untie the shoelaces of these men and these women. So it's a humbling experience, but it is also a realization that we can only be here because we are building on the pillar that these great men and women have laid for us. Ours is an easier job because they are trailblazers that have been in this office, that have demonstrated how LAZ must be utilized for the betterment of society.
No, I wish to disappoint you. Many young people are inspired by you. Many young people feel you are worthy of those big shoes. They've heard your voices, your voice. Like, look just at your record. You've taught other lawyers. You were an academic at the University of Zambia, and your distinguished professional life, including that of Central Bank. So do not denigrate yourself. I think you are equal to those men there. And as young people, many young people are inspired that it can be done, but finish.
Yes, let me also digress. I want to highlight the importance of youth leadership in this country.
Yeah.
Because when a youth leader steps up to a position, he's not doing or she's not doing it for himself or herself. It is the entire youth that is on test. Society is watching the steps of youth leaders more closely than older leaders. So the huge responsibility placed on a youth leader such as myself requires that I have no option but to do my very best. Why? Because when I succeed in my role, when I demonstrate and assure society that actually I am equal to the task, I am not doing it for myself. I am doing it for other fellow youth leaders who will be given an opportunity because there is an example that one youth elsewhere, other youth in the business circles in different spaces are able to do it. I have always held the view that we, the youths, sometimes are harshly judged.
Correct.
Why? Because even our forefathers, our freedom fighters, were youths when they were taking these critical positions in this nation. So we forget so easily. Why? Because they're in their twilight years, they are elderly, they are statesmen, but they started as youths. So yes, it's a huge responsibility, but when you're a youth leader, you are not doing it for yourself.
Yeah.
You are doing it to open doors for other fellow youths in all facets of society. But the question was, who inspires me?
Yeah.
Yes, there are many,
Yeah.
many leaders of LAZ, not just presidents, who have occupied serious positions, senior positions in this country. You were talking of vice president level. In fact, at top level, Levi Mwanawasa was the president of this country, was a lawyer.
Yes.
So these are pillars, these are lawyers that have demonstrated that they can do something to help the society. George Kunda, that you highlighted as vice president, also is a very good example of what it means to be a lawyer. You are not doing it for yourself. You are doing it for citizens. We have Linda Kasonde, courageous, powerful woman who will stand her ground. So all these are examples of people I look to. And because of that example they have laid, we are comforted as youth leaders that it can be done.
Oh, wonderful.
After all, they did it. It only takes dedication, it takes hard work, but it is not impossible to achieve.
You're right, because as at 1964, Dr. Kaunda was just 40.
Yes.
You know, and he didn't look at his age, he looked at the responsibility and discharged his duties according to the monumental task that was before him. This then allows me to transition to our regular debate in analyzing our country, the state of our country, where we are and where we are going. Maybe before that, just speak briefly about the history of LAZ and its role. Then I will ask you to assess our 7 presidents that we've had and the state of governance in our country as we are now.
Perfect. So as I was indicating in my initial remarks, we were celebrating last year 50 years of LAZ. The Golden Jubilee for LAZ gave us an opportunity to take stock of our various contributions as a legal profession in this country. The starting point is, what do lawyers stand for in this country? As I indicated, that is answered by statutory pronouncements contained in Section 4 of the Law Association of Zambia Act, Chapter 31 of the Laws of Zambia. Simple. Use the law to grow society. That is what we are all about. And lawyers have been growing society using their special skills in various facets of this life, of this country. We have members of the bar who anchor, for example, the judiciary is all made up of former lawyers, from the Chief Justice all the way to judges of the High Court. These are a body of lawyers that have been given a mandate. Of course, now they are in the judiciary. So their contribution in the space, all the Chief Justices you can remember, and what they have done for this country, that's the contribution of a lawyer to this country. That's the judiciary. We can go to the legislature. A number of lawyers have been members of parliament, contributing to the enactment of the laws as we see them now. But even at the helm of the legislature, the speaker, current speaker, is an eminent lawyer, member of the legal profession. So we are proud of various members of the legal profession and what they do in the different facets, in the different arms of government. We can go to the executive, the mainstream. Yes, we have had lawyers occupy the highest position. But there are many lawyers you don't see every day because they are behind in the Ministry of Justice drafting laws every day. There are lawyers supporting commerce, business in the entire business community. So ours has been a celebration. In the 50 years we have been looking at, as we also reflect on the 60 years of the country, we see that lawyers have been at the center of some of the major developments the country has seen. We are proud of the lawyers' contribution. You can, even if we went to the Supreme Law of the land, the names of the Constitutional Review Commissions, all these are lawyers, Patrick Mvunga, Mwamba, Mwanakatwe, that demonstrates to you how central the legal profession has been in what matters in this country. That's the past. But this realization has built in us a renewed spirit, a renewed commitment to build on what they have done for the country. We are more than able and willing, re-energized with this reflection that we can do more and we shall do more. So ours is a contribution in different spaces, and I think lawyers have done very well to assist society.
You have played a key role. I remember in 1990, Levi Mwanawasa himself was one of the major key lawyers for the MMD as a movement when there was a fight to abolish the one-party state. There were also activism from the bench where we saw the president's son, Dr. Kaunda's son, sentenced to death for a murder that occurred here in Lusaka. And you saw activism from the bench rising to defend the Constitution against attacks, I think, from the executive. We saw again the instrumental role that you played in 2001 when there was an attempt to amend the Constitution, maybe to allow the former president, Dr. Frederick Chiluba, to go for a third term. You left your benches, you left your clothes and joined with civil society and formed the Oasis Forum. We've seen the rebirth of the Oasis Forum 20 years later. Why? What have you seen is threatened, and why do you think that you should band yourself with the church, NGOCC, and others?
Yes, lawyers are one of the very few, if not the only profession, who have to swear. I remember a few court days away, I was giving an example of what to swear means. In my language, we have when you're young, to swear is equivalent to say, Kaleza kaningambe.
Yeah.
I am telling the truth and I am willing to face the consequence of being struck by lightning if I am lying.
Correct.
Kaleza kaningambe, I mean it. Lawyers have to do kaleza kaningambe before they can qualify to be lawyers. That kaleza kaningambe is that they will uphold the Constitution. They will defend the Constitution. They will protect the Constitution. So it's in the DNA of a lawyer to defend the Constitution, to preserve the Constitution, to promote the ethos and principles of the Constitution. So we are legally, not just morally, legally bound to advance constitutional tenets in this country. Otherwise, kaleza kazati ngamba. That is why you see us, not because we are politicians, but because we are duty bound to respect, uphold, and uplift this country. And the Constitution is the supreme law of the land. All our aspirations, where we have a chance to enact it as a people, are not through Parliament alone. We, the people, it's the only piece that is written in the collective, is the Constitution. So it's at the center of any country. Whether a country develops, stagnates, largely has to do with the Constitution. So we will always be interested in the Constitution. So 20 years ago, yes, we stepped up because it was threatening the existence of constitutionalism in this country. That's why the legal profession stood. But we can only be stronger together. And the need to collaborate has always been important, but it's always important even in this space. And the rebirth of the Oasis Forum is the realization that if we are pulling in different directions, if we are not having a united voice on matters of good governance, on matters of constitutionalism, on matters of rule of law, it is the citizens whose interests are prejudiced. The people that govern this country, you the politician, of course you have clarified you're not a politician in this role.
Correct.
But you the politicians have to be constantly reminded that this power, this responsibility we give you to govern the people is ultimately because it must be for the people. Ours is a democracy, defined as a rule by the people, for the people, and by the people. So we are only custodians as leaders in different institutions of governance, from the highest to the lowest, any position. Every person is only a custodian. You are trustees for the people. So it is important that we unite with similar voices to ensure that we remind each other, to ensure that constitutionalism, good governance, and rule of law is advanced in this country.
There's a matter that troubles me, especially when, to the legal fraternity, appointments have been made by the executive. The appointment maybe of a judge, appointment of any person that requires, by law, that the National Assembly, before its ratification, hears from institutions like yours. And we've heard many times that there are persons you have said, no, this is not fit to hold that office for one reason or another. But both Parliament and the Executive proceed. Do you have an avenue in which to ensure that your voice on such matters is respected?
Yes, that is a frustration shared by many institutions that advise. Because remember, an advisory role can always be a frustrating role because the decision maker is not the advisor. So LAZ is fully aware that it is called upon to comment and to make recommendations strongly on a lot of issues. But our voice will only be a recommendation.
It remains just advisory.
It remains. But we feel the frustration, of course, when sometimes we recommend in this direction and unfortunately the voice is not heeded. But over the 50 years, we have actually seen that some of the dangers we highlight in trying to point out, don't go in this direction because we know better, these are the consequences, they translate into practice. So ours is a plea to those that are charged with the mandate to govern the country. Hear professional voices and take them very seriously. Because we mean well. We want to strengthen the decision-making process. There's a biblical verse I like. It says, in the multitude of counselors, there is comfort. So we are trying to comfort the decision makers, not to dishearten them. So our voice must be seen to be a process to enrich the final decision, not to underplay or undermine the decision maker's decision. So yes, we always look for different avenues. We interact and engage stakeholders at different levels to bring to bear this message. Sometimes because of mistrust, because you don't fully appreciate where someone is coming from, we see our voice may be not taken. But it's not in all cases. There are many instances where the voice of LAZ is given due regard. And we want to promote those instances to be increasing. This is the only way we will be able to contribute our skill set to the development of the country.
Coming to your fraternity, in the past, there was only one school that would train lawyers, the University of Zambia, but there's been a proliferation of schools, and I think the number of lawyers graduating per year is far bigger than it used to be in the past. This may be comforting, but may also be discomforting. Comforting to the extent that legal services in this country are extremely expensive. Our ordinary people can't afford them. So maybe the more lawyers we have, the more the fees may be affordable to our people, and therefore legal services can be accessed by ordinary people. Discomforting is that will we compromise the quality? Will we see more misconduct among lawyers because of the competition, especially that the bulk of them are all based in Lusaka? How are you handling those two issues?
Yes, very, very pertinent issue. In fact, I was telling someone in the campaigns this past 2 weeks that being a LAZ president now is even more challenging than before. Why? Because the LAZ president is now required to look for strategies to deal with unemployment among lawyers. When I was becoming a lawyer 15 years ago, as I was leaving the University of Zambia, I had 3 job offers. So it was unheard of for a
lawyer to remain unemployed. Yeah.
It was unheard of. But yet in the broader economy, I know of others who may have done other courses who would be take maybe relatively longer to find an opportunity, but not for lawyers. So I knew I had to make a choice. And any of the choices that I took would take me to Ziale, pay for me, and I am comfortable. That is what we have always known in the legal profession. But yes, things have changed.
Yeah.
And it has been, obviously, on the backdrop of the liberalization. But it's a good thing. The country has 20 million citizens against 4,000 lawyers only. What that means, Ambassador, is that for each lawyer, you have 5,000 clients.
Yeah.
Assuming you are only looking at citizens as your clients. But there are additional players. There are foreign clients. There are corporate clients. So the situation is actually much more grave than this. There are not enough lawyers.
Yeah.
So we must encourage mechanisms to ensure that we space and we have these lawyers in all the different areas where they matter. Local government. Government is rolling out a number of programs. They say the CDF. Ordinarily, with huge amounts, you need a lawyer in every constituency as part of the process. You need a lawyer at every council because the skills the lawyer brings to the table are aimed at ensuring that service delivery is faster without making shortcuts. So we need more lawyers employed in the government space. We need more lawyers contributing in the broader business. But the broader economy also has a say in how many of these can be absorbed. So we are alive to the overriding objective that indeed there must be health numbers churned out, but also we are alive to the realities that there's unemployment as we speak. So it's a paradox that with so many lawyers needed, we have over 500 looking for jobs. So then that requires us to engage more and also to look at ways in which the economy and lawyers can also contribute in broadening the economy. Right. Because until the economy grows, not enough members will be employed because it speaks to the commerce, it speaks to the economy. So the smaller the economy, the smaller the opportunities for our members. But we are not interested in the number. And I've made this point before. That if Ziale must pass, only one person passes from Ziale, it's okay, provided there is quality over quantity. Provided
that is a controversial position to hold because Ziale, I'm glad you brought that matter up, has been a matter of controversy where the failure rate is probably the highest in Zambia, because you'll have 400 lawyers sit for exams and you hear that only 3 passed, only 6 passed out of such a huge number. The voices for us who make comments feel that are the lawyers trying to use Ziale as a door to close out, this access to the market? Or are you emphasizing on quality to the extent that if it's only one person that passes and that's a person that passes, how do you balance the fears that Ziale could be used as a barrier of entry to the market?
Yes, and that's a balancing act, but I think we must err on the side of quality over quantity. I always give an example to say, if you were, for example, facing a murder trial, then I told you, you know what, I passed, I just scraped through.
And I'm supposed to trust my life with you.
And I said, give me your life, I'll represent you. Then, did you pass there? I barely, I just somehow. Would you be happy?
No.
So we must contextualize the discussion that the pass rate is not a number. This speaks to people that we are entrusting with our lives. Similar to a doctor, you go to address to a lawyer. You bear all to a lawyer. You want to bear all to a professional you are assured has checked and ticked all the boxes at Ziale. We must be interested in the ticking of the boxes, not just the numbers. Because if we don't take care that the quality assurance is guaranteed at Ziale, then we may have a situation where the lawyer I give you, instead of helping you, will be escorting you to the gallows. So it's a balancing act, but I think it's better to be on the side of quality over quantity. But, and I've been very clear, that Ziale has never had a policy to just block people. Not at all. Because everyone writes the same exam. Everyone is passed through a same mark sheet. There are many mechanisms, and I'm glad Ziale has been putting mechanisms to address the concerns that members of the public have been raising. And in the recent past, the situation has been has been improving.
So I hope Ziale hasn't backward to our demands that they should pass more without compromising the standards.
Not at all. I think they have devised delivery mechanisms. They are meeting the students much more often. There are online meetings in addition to physical meetings. So they have diversified the service delivery, the way they deliver the service without compromising the quality. And they must be commended for that. So we must be supporting their efforts and not just criticizing that the rate is too low. Because if we are only after the number, it is us, the members of the public, who will suffer.
Yeah, which brings me to a rider question on misconduct and misconduct of lawyers. This we have seen rise. We've seen more accountants stealing. We've seen more engineers passing buildings or constructions in the belt industry. That should not be passed by an engineer. We've seen, even in the spiritual space, where we have more misconduct of so-called prophets and pastors, always, misconducting themselves. Your fraternity has not been spared by the misconduct of lawyers. How do you ensure that a few that could be misconducting themselves do not tarnish the image of the fraternity?
Yes, Ambassador, it's a very serious issue for LAZ to have any of its members fall below the grace. The association is so clear that to protect the integrity of society, to protect the integrity of the membership and the legal profession, we must have stringent mechanisms to rid the association of anyone who falls below. There are two-tiered approaches. Under the Law Association of Zambia itself as a body, there is a legal practitioners committee of lawyers dedicated to addressing all complaints of professional misconduct.
That come from clients.
So when you're unhappy with your lawyer, come to LAZ. LAZ will take that matter, will investigate, and where we find that the lawyer indeed misconducted themselves, appropriate sanctions will be given. But the number of good lawyers relative to the small lawyers makes it such a painful thing to, allege that lawyers are misconducting themselves. But again, I'm reminded of, our proverb that one rotten
groundnut, yes,
will spoil the whole of it. So the proportion of members that do things wrong is so small because of the mechanisms we have put in place to rid the profession of wrong characters.
Are you hearing these complaints from clients on time?
Yes, of course.
Is there delays? Our people think that as a fraternity you protect yourself. You as a leader, are you ensuring that these complaints are attended to and heard on time?
Yes. I mean, any complaint has to go through due process, which requires investigation. So sometimes there will be a complaint from my client. So I've complained to a lawyer, but you are notifying LAZ. And LAZ must get hold of what are the facts. And at the end of the due process, that's when an appropriate sanction is made out. But obviously, it's normal. And we say, a person who is aggrieved, you don't stifle their complaint. So they will come expecting that the day they are complaining is the same day the lawyer will be suspended. So
correct. Not being aware that not every allegation is true and it has to be investigated and subjected to the veracity of evidence.
True. So those challenges, some of them are the complex. Of course, there'll be areas where we need to improve, and we are constantly looking at how we can improve so that we can assure members of the public that you can go to a lawyer fully assured that this is a person, this is a man or woman who will treat you fairly, who will treat you with respect, who will attend to your matter professionally, because they saw to protect you. They saw to help advance your cause. So it's a difficult topic sometimes because depending on which client you're speaking to, they may have different expectations.
And on the legal service, which speaks to the right to access to legal services, do you have a tier process, for example, where ordinary citizens can be charged this, and maybe corporate clients like Bank of Zambia, who can afford any fee? Do you have such a tier, or it's just your time that you price as lawyers?
Obviously, depending on the lawyer you have picked, they will appraise your matter and discuss with you a pricing model subject to the legal requirements in terms of the legal practitioner's cost orders, how much to be charged, what time, and their skill set required to execute the transaction. So it's not every
you as LAZ do not have a say on how much a lawyer can charge?
We have a say insofar as we have issued a legal practitioner's cost order.
Okay, that's like the basic.
The basic.
Okay.
Then the actual amount that you will be charged will depend on what your lawyer thinks will take in terms of skill, in terms of time to execute your transaction. But on the topic of legal fees and how expensive they are, I always like to bring out this issue, pro bono policy. Lawyers are the only profession who have demonstrated that they love society so much that every lawyer has agreed through the LAZ pro bono framework to do one pro bono case per year as a precondition to renewing their license. So every lawyer, every year, will show LAZ, look, I helped a widow who needed probate papers to be issued for free. This is my contribution. Look, I helped a youth club that in the community is doing football and they needed a registration. This is my pro bono contribution. Or I picked up a matter from Legal Aid Board to assist one of those indigents to prosecute a matter. Or I picked up a case relating to, a widower who needed a will drafted. So this is our demonstration that lawyers are not after money. Not at all. We are after service. So we love society. And we are always willing to see how we can help society, including mitigating the challenges of fees.
Okay, loving society is another matter. Let me bring but since you profess love for them, I
don't know if politicians can also demonstrate. Even us, we have one such policy. Nothing.
Yeah. No. Like you are saying, you are a unique profession. We've not heard of any other profession that offer free services per year as a condition to part of licensing practice. Your view, Mr. Lungisani Zulu, especially that you are now sitting as LAZ president, you've probably have had thoughts about our country. Let's start with Dr. Kaunda. What's your evaluation? I asked this question because in 1964, 60 years ago, we started as quite a prosperous country, strong currency, firm foundation, we're a multi-party democracy, and we're a good economy. As we sit now, 60 years later, we are a poor country, highly indebted, one of the 20 poorest countries in the world. Now, these are decisions made or not made by especially our 7 leaders that we've had and their teams. But there are things they also did very well, which we also can recognize. We are still intact. We've never been to war. We've never had any civil insurrections in this country. So there are things we've achieved. There are things we probably could have achieved more. In your assessment, let's start with Dr. Kaunda.
Ambassador, that's a very tough question for a LAZ president or a lawyer, and a lawyer for that matter.
Yeah.
Because we are not very politically suited to assess performance against benchmark. But and to go through, okay, so Dr. Kaunda, out of 10, where do you think he stands?
But maybe in relation to the fraternity, to your legal fraternity, to constitutionalism, to good governance, that you should be home.
True. So what I wanted to say is it would be very unfair and maybe even quite subjective to go through a judgment of Dr. Kaunda, Dr. Chiluba, Mwanawasa, Banda, President Rupia Banda, Michael Sata, Edgar Lungu, and now President HH, and fairly rank them on the same parameter. Okay. I think maybe a lawyer may not do such a good job.
Okay.
But there's something we can say, that every president has unique opportunities to do big things for this country. It's a very, being president of the country or being given a mandate to rule a country as a political party is a huge responsibility. And of course, we can discuss and debate on whether each one will utilize this mandate to the advancement of the country appropriately. But the citizens are interested in ensuring that there's democracy, there's rule of law, the economy is correct, that they can live in their own country. Because unfortunately, no matter how big Earth is, only this space has been allocated to us, and it is Zambia, we can call it our own. So I just want to highlight that it's a huge responsibility.
Correct.
And we must always be alive to ensuring that whoever is the president at any particular time, whoever is the ruling party at any particular time, is doing their very best to advance our collective progress. We must be seeing that we are making progress as a nation in all the spaces and spheres that matter. Economic development, democracy, rule of law, good governance, innovation. We must be transitioning because this is a Zambian dream. We must be going to the next level and not stagnant. So it's such a tough topic for me to properly address. But I think we have been blessed with men and women who have done a stellar job. And I think Mwanawasa did a very good job, especially that perhaps he came in at a time when People did not expect that he could achieve a lot. Each of our presidents has tried their very best, but there's always more that can be done. There's always room for improvement. And the incumbent president has the benefit of looking at 6 presidents and deciding to beat all of them. So we always demand more from
the incumbent
at any particular time. Why? Because we know what failure looks like at this age. We know what progress looks like. We know what democracy looks like. We know what autocratism or authoritarianism looks like. So we will never be shy to say, no, Mr. President, what we're doing, we don't like it at Zambia. Not that we hate you as a president. We don't like this direction. Every Zambian knows how progress looks like. Every Zambian knows
how failure looks like.
Yes. And we will never shy away to say, no. Where you are going, if you don't take steps, Bwana, you will not succeed.
I think you've given a good answer to that, so we'll not go in the individual ranking and assessment. Other guests have done that for you, so we'll spare you.
Yes,
we'll go to the current state of affairs.
Yes.
You recently wrote a letter, literally of reprimand, to the Inspector General of Police, because we've had 2 Inspector General of Police under the government of President Hakainde Hichilema. Lemi Kajoba denied permits, but he didn't justify them. And maybe we didn't see that it was infringing on our constitutional right, our citizens, and then as political players. And because he didn't express it, and remember there was a window of honeymoon by the new government, I think they needed to be allowed to settle before political parties probably could begin to offer heavy sort of criticism and mobilize themselves. But this current Inspector General of Police, who you wrote to, has been very clear. He says he will not allow campaigns. He thinks it's not campaign time. And he has literally suspended rights of citizens. He has literally interpreted the law of the Public Order Act in his own view. And when you see such lawlessness, it must worry you. And I'm glad that you offered an opinion on the matter of the Inspector General of Police.
Yes, and LAZ is not shy and do not mince words. We do not accept any office, list the office of the Inspector General of Police, to use that public office to fetter liberties of citizens of this country. It is not a favor for members of the public to express themselves, to associate freely within the confines of the law, with any political party of their choice, to hold rallies as they wish within the confines of the law. It is not a favor to be done by the Inspector General of Police. No. It is a right that the Constitution bestows on citizens. So we are very categorical that it is unfortunate. That is why we are always very clear. We condemn any lawlessness, any abuse of the Public Order Act. And this is not new. We have done this before. In all governments, we condemn. We will not change because there's a new Inspector General of Police or there's a new Dawn government. LAZ has always been very clear. When we see abuse, and most of the abuse happens from the space, in this same space of the Public Order Act, LAZ has litigated this issue over and over. The Constitutional Court has pronounced itself very clearly how the Public Order Act is. But it's as though politicians are born from one mother.
I think it was Yalo and Daimo. We are all born from one mother.
Because we are perplexed at how these same condemnations, depending on which political side you are and whether you are ruling or not, will make sense or not make sense to you. No. An idea must stand on its own, not because of the person who has issued it or against whom it is directed. This country needs to make progress in the democratic space. So we condemn any underhand methods, any abuse of the Public Order Act, any stance by the Inspector General of Police, and we are very categorical, to say I will not allow political rally. It's not for him to allow. That is allowed by the Constitution. His is the mandate to protect and assure public order when citizens are freely exercising that right. So he has no right to administer the rights of citizens. Him is to protect and provide the relevant security. So we are saddened that we sound like a broken record. In the PF Times, we said it. We don't tolerate abuses of the Public Order Act. Not because we loved opposition then, no. Even in the New Dawn, we have said it, and we'll continue saying it. Abuse of the Public Order Act does not progress the country. It actually takes us back. We will say it, not because we love the opposition, but because we love the country. Because the country we want to see is an organized country, a democratic country. Article 8 of the Constitution is very categorical. Our principles and our values expect us to be democratic, to be upholding constitutionalism. A lot of principles that will make this country better are already written. The greatest challenge we face in this country is not the laws. It is the application of the law by those entrusted at any time. A number of laws are already progressive, but the willingness to obey and apply them fairly across political lines remains the greatest challenge. So we will continue speaking, and we are very categorical that LAZ does not tolerate abuse of any law, even and including, especially, the Public Order Act.
The Constitution, there are two schools of thought on the current Constitution, which was enacted as an amendment in 2016. There's a group that is saying probably we need to allow the Constitution to somehow breathe, live its life, see the various provisions. But there is another group, especially led by, I think, government and the Minister of Justice. And before that, there was Bill 10, in the previous government, trying to identify the so-called lacunas and correct the Constitution. What is your position? Do we need to attend to the Constitution now? Or do we allow it to breathe, then see the weaknesses and then seek its amendment or reform?
Well, there are many good things in the 2016 Constitution. I must admit, Ambassador Mwamba, a lot of progressive things were introduced in the 2016 Constitution.
Oh.
But
you can speak to the good things, because sometimes we concentrate on the bad things.
Yeah, 50+1, so that the person who is given the power has a huge mandate, not where we doubt whether indeed this president is popular or not. So the requirement that you must meet 50+1, which came with the 2016 Constitution, very progressive, because as executive head, you want to be assured that you must be given the latitude to concentrate on delivery and not the politicking. A president who is on a first-past post, 1 or 2 votes over the next, is never secure. So they spend all their time, instead of delivering for people, they spend their time to entrench themselves. Their power. So that could be a threat, because if you have 16%, yet you are the president of the country, you know that 16% can disappear tomorrow. But 50+1 is an assurance to say the whole country has your back. You are then mandated to do a lot of things as executive head without worrying about what politics looks like. That's very progressive. There are many different pieces in the Constitution. We said before you contract debt, our representatives must have a say. They must sanction. Why? We don't want debt to be rising without, oversight of our people. We have put our representatives, we have put in Parliament. One of the challenges we have had, even in terms of the central institution in monetary policy, the Constitution, so the Bank of Zambia, this is a constitution that gave autonomy to the central bank. to say you can, without fearing interference, you can discharge your monetary policy objectives. So you are assured with the operational autonomy. Do it for the best of the country. So these are things that were never there before, but they came with the 2016 Constitution. So yes, there are many progressive things, but there are also a number of things, and maybe we should start with even the current government promised that they will look at the reform of the Constitution, that they will build consensus of all critical stakeholders and then reform the Constitution. Speaking as LAZ, part of the Oasis Forum, we have been very categorical that it cannot therefore translate that a year or 2 years later you are silent about a roadmap. Give the people a roadmap of what that reform agenda looks like. It's for that reason that the Oasis Forum has been demanding that there must be clarity, because with a roadmap, stakeholders, citizens will begin now planning. How do we support government in this critical position? So the Constitution is a very critical piece. There's a strong school of thought, and I also agree that how good a Constitution is, how well it is, not just how good and written, but how well it is also executed, is directly proportional to the progress a country makes. We will only make progress when we have good laws, and not just on paper, but also applied in practice. So there are a number of areas, and a number of stakeholders have different areas they have pointed out. But we needed a consensus of how will this be done. When I hear government, the position is unclear. Sometimes they say, okay, we'll deal with those challenges. Next phase, we will deal with... So there's no timeline.
Yeah, government has said, first they need to amend the new constitution. Second, they say there's a structure where they want to start with so-called non-contentious issues. And I was wondering that where do they even get the consensus, even to pronounce those two issues?
True. So that's because of a failure to have a roadmap. Because contentious and non-contentious already is a difficult conversation. Contentious according to who? So our demand as Oasis Forum has been very clear. Government do present a broad, a consensus-based roadmap as soon as possible, so that if according to government this will take 20 years, perhaps then we know that this is a priority. If it will take 3 months, it will take 7 months, the stakeholders will be better prepared. It costs a lot of money to amend or to reform the Constitution. And stakeholders that may support this process will also have to be aligned if they must support it. So citizens and various stakeholders cannot help government, cannot contribute to the reform of this important piece of legislation without a roadmap which is based on consensus from stakeholders. That has been our position.
On the issue of the shrinking democratic space, there is very deep concern. President Hakainde Hichilema and the 2021 elections, I think, presented an opportunity to strengthen our democracy. There was fear that there was erosion to democratic institutions. There was fear that our democratic credentials were threatened. Issues of political violence, attacks on the media, the role of institutions weaponized against the opposition. Sadly, 3 years on, these matters have come even in a harder way. The police and law enforcement agencies are being accused of being weaponized against the opposition. The case, although it's in court, the matter between Mao Sampa and the Patriotic Front demonstrated how the executive can abuse state institutions, from the police, the Registrar of Society, ECZ, and Parliament. And this is a matter you also commented about. The recent report by the Human Rights Watch, a respected human rights organization in the world, has highlighted these issues, that Zambia is falling and failing in the matters of good governance and in the matters of democratic space. The conduct of the Inspector General of Police, and just the police who have even allowed now the re-emergence of torture, things that should be behind us. The abuse of citizens, the extrajudicial killings for political parties who've not been allowed to express themselves. No form of any procession, whether it's a rally, protest, demonstration, they are not allowed. And then the assault on democratic institutions, like I was saying, like ECZ and Parliament, and the judiciary that appear to be controlled by the executive. This has raised concern on our democratic space. It's a matter you have commented about as well as LAZ. Just speak to these matters and your concerns.
The topic and the issue of shrinking democratic space always brings different understandings from different people, depending on who is viewing what they think it means. Permit me by stressing that it does not mean an assessment of how the UPND is doing in this space compared to PF. And therefore, PF did better than UPND. I think shrinking democratic space in its generic meaning is an assessment of how a government is doing in ensuring that the tenets of democracy are applied consistently and correctly. So it can be, and there was shrinking democracy even in the PF, insofar as many things were concerned. You highlight some of the issues already. But the citizens, having been, frustrated by that, then decided to use their mandate, their electoral vote, to go to UPND. The expectation was very clear that they would obviously do better. And to their credit, they have tried in a number of spaces. Some of the situations, some of the complaints of cadres, bus stations and all relative to the PF, UPND has brought normalcy in a number of areas. But as I indicated in the initial stages, citizens of this country know what rule of law looks like. And they don't want rule of law or enjoyment of the political rights only for their friends or the people they like, even their opponents. So when they see any citizen victimized on the basis of political opinion or political association, they are duty-bound to raise concern. So shrinking democratic space. And one typical example is political rallies. If the government's position is there will be no rally until the next elections, it's without a doubt that that's a testament of a shrinking democratic space, because the Constitution has already indicated what the space looks like. So the space, a democratic space, ensures that those you like and those you don't like are treated the same way, because no one is above the law. And you can't discriminate a citizen on the basis of race, political opinion, or other irrelevant considerations. So shrinking democratic space must be judged in terms of what are the tenets expected in each of these spaces. So a constant engagement with government, reminding them that it is important for citizens to freely enjoy their liberties to the fullest extent is what we mean. But I'm happy that one of the last statements that you allude to, that LAZ issued, the Minister of Home Affairs, Honorable Jack Mwembo, did take a very progressive approach. That is to direct police to look at these concerns we raise, concerns of extrajudicial killings, complaints about rallies and liberties of political opponents in the way they discharge their duty. And the minister went so far as to say, please, take this seriously and reform. I think that's progressive. That's what we want, because the beneficiaries are also citizens of this country. So any shrinking, any stepping on the rights of any citizen is a concern to us. We don't have to like you or any other person for us to step in. Ours is an oath to protect the Constitution. And provided the Constitution says, Emmanuel Mwamba, whether you are PF, you are UPND, or you are non-partisan, LAZ has to step in. Not just because we like you or we don't like you, but because the Constitution guarantees you. So we will raise concern whenever any citizen in Shangombo, in Chadiza, in Mongo is affected. Because those things we are demanding make the country better, not worse. A country where you can freely assemble, a country where you can freely express your opinions within the confines of the law is a stronger country, because by ventilating your ideas to those that are governing, you are helping them to change their ways. You are strengthening the quality of governance in this country. So by stifling divergent views, you are weakening leadership. There's one typical, I think it's a grade 7 book or thereabout, about the emperor's new clothes. The emperor's new clothes is a funny story, but it demonstrates what happens when a society ceases to be critical and provide avenues for its citizens to contribute genuinely to the governance of the country, where everyone is to praise. Why? Because the emperor had no clothes, yet everyone was praising him for a good suit he had worn. That is what happens when we do not allow mechanisms. And that's how the Constitution is built. Because we don't want an emperor's new clothes. We don't want our leaders to have new clothes that are nothing. The Constitution has built safeguards to ensure that each institution of governance plays their role. And it's our interest as LAZ that everyone is playing by the book. That is how we protect the progress of the country. So it's wonderful. Not out of hate, it's out of improving the quality of governance.
Yeah.
When we stop, the result is emperor's new clothes.
Yeah. Yeah, no, the reign of sycophancy does explain why the emperor was naked, because everyone was afraid to criticize or air the truth to the emperor. And the emperor was cheated by this tailor that the best new clothes was actually wearing nothing. And no one could tell the emperor that he was naked until a little boy stepped up and reminded the emperor that he was naked. And you can imagine how foolish he looked. So sycophancy and unnecessary praise does destroy our leaders. As we begin to end our program, where do you wish to take LAZ? What were your promises in your re-election? You have made history. I think you could be the only one or one of the few LAZ leaders that were re-elected to another term. Where are you taking LAZ? What did you pledge to do both for your members and for our country?
Very, very good questions, and non-political love such questions.
Everything is political.
So, Ambassador, in the first term, when I was given the mandate and my team, we set out to strengthen the internal capacity of LAZ and its members to discharge their statutory obligation. What did we do? We set up, one, a funeral grant. Previously, as a law association, we pay $3,500 to help a member who dies. We raised it to $50,000. Oh. Anytime a member of LAZ dies, LAZ steps in and gives them $50,000. How did we do this? We got 1,000 per member from the coffers of LAZ and invested in a government securities for 15 years.
Okay.
That government security gives us coupons in excess of 500,000.
Every 6 months or every year?
Yes, every year.
Okay.
So that gave us, from our analysis, that we always have enough to pay from the coupons for as long as the bond is there. For the next 15 years, we'll pay sufficient amounts to give dignity to our members. But we put this in a lawyers' cooperative. That lawyers' cooperative is a platform where every month, every lawyer is given an opportunity to save 1,000. In addition to that other one we already gave you. This 1,000 we take again and invest it for you. The day you need, financial support, we just cash some of that money, which we have invested and grown for you through the lawyers' cooperative. That's a welfare issue. We went out and checked that our junior lawyers are exploited in some of the workspaces. So LAZ commissioned the JCTR to conduct a study with a view to have a LAZ standard wage, an amount that we believe as a legal profession is decent enough to be paid to any lawyer who steps out of ZLA. After that, we came up with the LAZ standard wage. That standard wage helps us to regulate abuse in the legal profession. We also went further and started the process of reforming the regulatory framework for lawyers. You may wish to know, Ambassador, that in this country, law firms are set up pursuant to an English statute of 1890, long before we were born.
Yeah.
Even in England, where the Partnership Act came from, they have since moved to new modern trends of setting up firms, such as limited liability partnerships. That process started in the first term, and I asked the members to give me a fresh mandate so that we enhance the works we have done in the first term, which is to build our internal capacity to contribute more to society. You may also have heard that one of the flagship programs we embarked on was to galvanize the business community in this country. Zaki, Chamber of Mines, Bankers Association of Zambia, to come together with LAZ, together with the professional bodies, Zambia Institute of Chartered Accountants, architects, engineers, and as well as the chartered engineers. They came together to create an institution called the Lusaka International Arbitration Center. This is a center which is aimed at ensuring that we address the challenge of delayed commercial resolution disputes. Ours has been a country where it has been...
This is an initiative of the profession and your professional associations?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
This is a private sector-led initiative of LAZ together. So LAZ approached these professional bodies to say, come with us. Because our mandate is to better society using the law. Please come together. Let's join hands and create an institution that will administer justice in the alternative, using alternative to litigation.
Mechanisms, yeah.
So we set up this institution, and the president was launching it on the 5th of April last month. We want to grow this institution so that in this country we can assure local, domestic, as well as foreign investors that if you have a matter and there's a dispute,
you don't have to go to London or Cape Town. It can be done here.
Here. And you don't have to be stuck in court for 5 years. No business will happen in this country if people are stuck in court for 5 years. No employment to be created in this country if people are stuck because they are fighting in court. It pains LAZ. That's why we went to these professional bodies and joined hands with them to form this institution. So now we want to support this institution. So we are looking at ways in which we can...
So who's doing the resolutions? Are you hiring judges, lawyers? How's the panel that is adjudicating in this matter? And how different are you, like, to the commercial courts?
Perfect. That's a very good question, Ambassador. So, because it's a private alternative dispute resolution administering body, we are creating panels of professional arbitrators, local and international. So the same international arbitrators you would have gone to find in London will now come in Lusaka and be part of the panel. Why? Because this is the Lusaka International Arbitration Center. When a dispute between Barrick or any other supplier or any other investor happens, and there's a Lusaka International Arbitration Center arbitration clause to say the dispute will be resolved here, an arbitrator will be appointed. They will sit and resolve the matter quickly. And government has responded very positively. Government has since issued instruction to all government ministries, to all parastatals, to begin incorporating arbitration at Lusaka International Arbitration Center for any dispute relating to a government contract.
Oh, okay, good.
We are also encouraging business communities, banks, engineers, construction road. We want to contribute to, easing some of the challenges that come with litigation. So it's experts that are empaneled at the Lusaka International Arbitration Center who will resolve the matter quickly. And I've been boasting that for once, even as president of LAZ, when I'm asked, how long does a matter take to resolve in a Zambian court? My answer, it depends on the judge, workload. So there's no precise time. But you can't put huge amounts of money and invest in a country where this question cannot be answered.
Your arbitration center, your ambition, what have you put at? How long will it take you to resolve the issues? 3 to 6 months. Wow. That's highly ambitious.
Depending how complex it is, maybe up to 18 months. But by any standard, that is efficiency. It means if you and I have a dispute, we take it to LIAC, we know it will be over within 3 to 6 months or 18 months.
And the legal status of the arbitration center and the legal effect, how do we ensure that, for example, people just don't ignore the rulings from there and judgments?
Perfect. So by law, which is contained in the Arbitration Act of 2000 of this country, once there is an arbitration done in this country, you only need to go and register it in a court of law. It becomes a judgment of the court, and you enforce it going forward. But there's even better news. You can't appeal. It is final because it's coming from an expert. Not even the court would be the best suited expert to resolve a complex matter. So you cut on time to resolve a matter, you have finality, and you move forward. This way, there will be better commerce in this country. And the issues of unemployment, even of lawyers, I mentioned, becomes easier to address.
When does it start work? Has it started work?
It has started work.
Oh, wonderful.
So it was launched on the 5th. We are in the process of finalizing the rules to publish them. We're in the process of inviting the panels to be empaneled. And we are now mobilizing support from all the business community, from all the lawyers, to begin to put a clause. Simply, any dispute from this matter will be resolved at Lusaka International Arbitration Center. Those are the magic words. Then you are assured that you will escape the frustration of being in the court of law.
Now, having worked as PS, I saw many contracts, especially big contracts, where arbitration was set to occur, in the London High Court. And it's good that we can have local arbitration trusted by both investors and our government to resolve these issues.
So it speaks to what are we trying to do?
Yes.
We want to reform the regulatory space. We want to build on some of these initiatives that we have. Ultimately, when a lawyer is empowered economically, when a lawyer is empowered in terms of welfare, that is the only time they'll be effective in discharging their mandate of using the instrument of the law to better society. So my mandate is simple. continue building the capacity of my members.
Earlier on, you had talked about the issue of partnership and the law. I think that creates you, that dates back as 1890. Is there mechanisms to reform how law firms are set up?
Yes.
I'm saying this because I worked in the space of South Africa. Some of the biggest buildings in Sandton are owned by law firms. And I think that has to do with the mechanism of their registration. Business entities can come together, they don't have to be lawyers, and set up law firms as an investment and then hire lawyers to do the job. And, they are some of the biggest companies in South Africa and other jurisdictions. Have you considered making law practice as potentially a big commercial business like that?
Yes. So we are interested in building bigger firms because it's bigger firms that will have more economic power to employ the members.
Yeah.
I was joking just 2 weeks ago. We had a law firm, one of the law firms, come into Zambia to support training our lawyers to support arbitration at Lusaka International Arbitration Center. This is a firm of 3,500 lawyers.
Yeah.
I was joking to my members that we are not even enough.
One law firm can employ all the Zambian lawyers.
Because they are bigger firms. So we need to provide mechanisms to have bigger firms, stronger firms. So the process of reforming the law has started. Okay. We are consulting our members on what are the relevant parameters that we can put in place. We want to introduce limited liability partnerships, that where we see a firm being an independent entity from the partners. So these are conversations we'll be having. We may not be as ambitious as you want, where you want to invest in the law firm and you are not. So maybe not yet, but
you are taking a step
to ensure that we have stronger firms and bigger firms, because it is these bigger firms that will contribute more effectively to the development of this country.
Oh, wonderful, wonderful. I'd like to invite you to make your last comments and we close.
Thank you, Ambassador, for inviting me here. I had indicated in my initial remarks that this is an important platform. Why? Because many times I feel in this country we spend too much time politicking. We don't have deliberate mechanisms to exchange ideas to progress society. We can't build a country if 24/7 all we do is politic. But we can build a country where we are all interested in providing alternatives and, divergent views for the progress of the country. And your conversation, the conversation podcast that you have anchored, is an important platform to bring issues that will help the country progress, to bring different players, to stimulate conversation that will build the country for better. It is our country. We can fight all we want, we can argue all we want, but if we are not being strategic, we're not being innovative as citizens of this country, we will always be number 2 and not 1, because the world has changed.
Correct.
Everyone is in the race as a country to make progress. So we must be providing avenues for citizens to discuss, deliberate on issues that will take us forward, on issues that will ensure that we also land on the earth. We'll send satellites to the universe. That's how we will become strong as a country. Yeah. We need to build the Zambian brand for better. So thank you for inviting me here. And it's been a wonderful conversation with you, Ambassador.
Oh, thank you very much. I'd like to thank you. Thank you for making your time, your very busy schedule. And once again, congratulations for your re-election. We, dear viewers, we're hosting Mr. Lungisani Zulu, the current Law Association of Zambia president. He has just been re-elected in his second term, and he has highlighted some of the achievements his leadership and his team have done. Mr. Lungisani Zulu holds a Master of Laws degree in International Commercial Law from Cornell University School of Law in New York. He holds a Bachelor's of Law degree from the University of Zambia. He is an advocate of the High Court, of the Supreme Court and of the Constitutional Court. And, he has vast experience in academic and corporate, and is contributing in his capacity as Law Association of Zambia. They've recently joined the Oasis Forum, where there is a rebirth to help, I think, drive the process of the Constitution. That it is people-driven, it has stakeholder engagement, and clear roadmap is created. So until we have another guest, thank you for being with us. Thank you for listening to us. God bless you. God bless our country, and shalom, shalom.